unsuspecting Townsville, all snug in your beds.
Hey there, marvelous cartoon fans, welcome back to the channel. Who exactly is him from the Powerpuff Girls? This video is all about the most disturbing villain in cartoon history. Let's get into it. I was like 5 or 6 at the time when I first saw Powerpuff Girls, you know. I really liked the whole idea of 3 little kids around my age, or maybe a little older, fighting crimes before bedtime. Kinda made me feel like I too could be a superhero in a way. And the villains they fought? Mojo Jojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins. Oh, it was so satisfying to see the girls defeat them. But then came a villain who just didn't make sense to me at all. Him. Soft voice, lobster claws, red skin, pink tutu, and thigh-high boots. Everything about him was so different, and he left a mark on me. His soft, vaguely feminine whisper that turned into a demonic screech whenever he was mad, I couldn't forget it. And now here I am, decades later, older and wiser, and I still haven't figured out who him is. So if you're in the same boat as me, then this video is for you. So join me as we break down who him is and why Craig McCracken created such a devastating and devilish character in the first place for a children's show. Where did him come from, and why did Craig McCracken build this character? So, the Powerpuff Girls began when Craig McCracken was a student at CalArts back in 1992. Originally titled Whoop-Ass Stew, this student film had 3 girls who were rougher and more aggressively named. But if you ever get to see the film, you will recognize Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup easily. Eventually, the film got picked by Cartoon Network, and when the series properly launched in 1988, McCracken had already spent years on the girls in the world. And yes, that included the villain roster. Every single villain plays on a villain archetype we've seen before. Mojo Jojo? He's the scheming intellectual villain who's a smartass. Fuzzy Lumpkins? That's the brute. Princess Morbucks? She's a spoiled rich kid with a chip on her shoulder. While Gangrene Gang, as you can guess, was the street-level thugs. Even as a child, I could understand and categorize these villains because I had seen something akin to them in other movies. And that was the point. Then came him. He was created to be something else completely. The visual inspiration for him, according to McCracken, came from the Chief Blue Meanie from the 1968 Beatles animated film Yellow Submarine. Now, look at him and Chief Blue Meanie side by side. They look kinda similar, right? But there's more. See, Chief Blue Meanie also had a similar vocal range to him, where at first, there's this whisper-like feminine tone, and then explosive rage without any warning. McCracken was a big fan of the Beatles, and that's why in the Meet the Beatles, we see him, Mojo Jojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins, that basically references the Beatles every now and again. So, in a way, you can say him was McCracken's homage to the Beatles. When you look deeper into the design philosophy of him with, you know, the gender non-conforming presentation with the tutu, the boots, the heavy makeup, etc., you'll realize that this is all deliberate from McCracken. See, McCracken wanted to give us a villain that we couldn't categorize. So he went this route as none of the children watching the show could truly predict or even pretend to comprehend him as a character. And that's why I guess him stayed with me for as long as it did. Look at that red skin. That's pretty satanic coded, wouldn't you agree? Well, that was a deliberate choice too. But instead of playing him as a demonic entity, McCracken decided to make him a demonic entity adjacent to the devil. We get no clarification as to why him acts the way he does. But that's the whole point, and that's what makes him so scary. But that's not what him is it? So that brings us to our next question.
Now I will destroy you, and your poor helpless...
What exactly is him? Species, identity, and the deliberate mystery. Now, let's make one thing clear. Him is never named in the show. The pronoun is used as a proper noun, and the show refuses to explain why. In the narrator's introduction of Him's debut, we're told that he's so evil and so horribly vile that even saying his name would strike fear into the hearts of men. You know, kinda like how you say you-know-who instead of Voldemort. Just by doing this, we immediately know right off the bat that Him is operating on a greater level than every other villain we've met so far. Clearly, he's a big deal. Why else would they hide his name? And then, when we see him in action, we know just how powerful he can be. When him is operating at full power, the environments around him literally warp. You know in your heart, even if it's not said out loud, that he is a demonic entity. And I want to talk about this gender presentation for a second. For a show that came out in 1998, not once across the show's 78 episodes or its mini segments was him ever the butt of the joke. His tutu, boots, and eyeliner were just as accepted as his lobster claw and red skin. This is who he is, and we just accepted it. Standing in 2026, I gotta give this show its props. This was a bold move for a 1998 children's television show. While that's all fine and dandy, you also have to say that giving the one gender non-conforming character the pure evil status is a bit shady. That's an argument that's been happening in fan spaces for years, and rightfully so. But in my eyes, from the interviews of McCracken that I've seen, the man just really wanted to create a villain who wouldn't make sense to the kids. Someone who would confuse them from the get-go, which would automatically put the kids on high alert, which would just get worse as more and more powers of the villain became clear. And he did it by giving us him.
The beauty lies in the flame.
Him's power set. What can he actually do? Let's talk about what him can actually do that makes him a frightening villain. Because when I tell you he's a villain who shouldn't be on a Saturday morning cartoon, I mean it. Throughout the show, it's been confirmed time and again that him can warp realities. He can create alternate realities, he can create nightmare environments, and he can create spaces that don't follow any physics, making it kinda hard to navigate. He can also do possessions, as we saw with Octi. Why? Because he understands psychological warfare. There is pain in getting beaten, yes, but that pain is nothing when compared to losing something that you love. He knows that, and he uses that in his debut, immediately solidifying his role as a top-tier villain. He can also manipulate time, as we saw in Speed Demon. We'll get into it in detail, but basically he conquered Townsville completely with ease once the girls weren't around. We've also seen him read and attack the emotional states of the girls, basically exploiting them. In The Boys Are Back in Town episode, we see him resurrect the Rowdyruff Boys and basically upgrade them so that the girls' natural instincts work against them. In Him Diddle Riddle, he trapped the professor and then forced the girls to complete impossible real-world challenges to free him, which is basically a nightmare construct. And of course, in Tough Love, we saw him literally turn love against the girls, making them targets of unfiltered hatred of the townspeople. With that kind of a list, you understand why I say that him is on a whole different level, right? And I didn't even say his most dangerous ability yet, and that ability is psychological manipulation. Unlike Mojo Jojo, who builds something, gets beaten, and gives monologues, him always attacks the internal world of the girls, breaking them mentally. He makes them doubt themselves, question the people around them, even waver in their faith in themselves. And surprisingly enough, he does get to them. And when he gets to the girls, the fight to defeat him feels pointless, even for starting, and it feels so real. So when eventually our girls stand up and manage to defeat him, it feels so powerful and earned. But you gotta admit that for a show aimed at children, that is something really dark.
Bubbles, you should talk to Buttercup and tell her that
Him's first appearance, and why Octi Evil still holds up. I have to be so honest with you. Even though it's been decades since I first saw this episode, every time I see it, I feel extremely uncomfortable. Which goes to show how Him's debut is absolutely devilishly perfect. In this episode, we first see the girls fighting with a three-headed snake beast, right? But in the midst of it, miscommunication happens, and Blossom and Buttercup start fighting with one another, completely ignorant of how their fights affect Bubbles. And there's someone who isn't ignorant of it, and that's Him, who's been remotely monitoring the girls. So, seeing Bubbles crying, Him sets his eyes on her and eventually that night, manages to get close to her using her doll Octi to speak with her. He gives her his own opinions that Bubbles keeps believing because why would her dear Octi lie to her? These opinions slowly pull the girls apart, causing more and more fights between them. And then, when everything is going to hell, emotionally speaking of course, Him reveals himself, transforming Octi into this red, gigantic octopus, calling Bubbles naive for even believing that toys could talk to her, and then berating her for believing in the toy in the first place. Luckily, Blossom and Buttercup set aside their differences at the right time and join Bubbles to defeat Him, and all ends well. But you gotta admit, this episode is wild. For most of the episode, Him is not on screen, but oh my god, you feel his presence throughout the show, even when he's not there. His voice, this soft whisper that echoes, kind of feels creepy even when I think about it. And I will say it, guys, even if you guys disagree, I feel that Octi Evil is a very good example of sophisticated horror writing. And by the time the episode ends, you totally get why even the narrator was spooked.
Hi, girls.
Hi. Hi, girls. Hi. Hi, girls. Hi.
Speed Demon, the episode where Him won. Out of all the episodes where we see Him, the general consensus is that this episode is the most disturbing, and honestly, I see it. In this episode, we have the three girls flying home, right? And like kids, they start racing with one another. Eventually, they go so fast, they end up traveling 50 years into the future, and the future isn't looking so good. Townsville is a ruin, populated by the aged versions of every person the girls knew who blamed them for letting everything fall apart. They tell the girls that while they were gone, him took everything. The entire town of Townsville looks bleak and empty as the girls tour it. People are barely recognizable, and as the girls are coping with this, him shows up. He warmly tells the girls that everything they're seeing around them, all the misfortune and horror, happened because they left. He didn't even have to defeat them to get this. He just had to wait until they left. His laugh in this scene feels so real that even to this day, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. And with just this, him was able to sow the seeds of self-doubt in the girls, leaving them questioning if they even mattered in any way or not. I mean, eventually our girls saved the day, but man, I would be kidding if I said it didn't leave me all freaked out. Tough Love, him's most psychologically sophisticated attack. While Speed Demon showed just how patient him can be, Tough Love was the episode where you see him being the most scheming. Him is sick and tired of having everyone love the Powerpuff Girls, so instead of attacking them directly, he sent a wave of manipulative emotion that made every single person who loves the Powerpuff Girls hate them instead. All of their loved ones try to attack them, and at first the girls hesitated because how could they hurt someone they love, like the mayor, the cat, Miss Kane, or the professor? But then Buttercup points out that their loved ones would never hate them, and the ass-whooping ensued. Sure, this brought everyone out of their trance, and eventually everything returned to normal, but you gotta admit, the trap was pretty elegant. And that's why him is so interesting as a villain. He isn't doing all of this because he wants Townsville. No, it feels a lot more personal. Almost like he wants to win something from within the girls, you know? Like he wants the girls to feel worthless, hopeless, and the lack of love just for his pleasure. The Rowdyruff Boys connection. Him as a maker of villains. I personally love this episode because here, we see him do something no one has done before. You have the Rowdyruff Boys, Brick, Boomer, and Butch, who the girls defeated before by showing them affection. But this time around, thanks to him, whenever the girls would try to show them affection, the boys would grow stronger. This isn't the only time him has done something like this, though. Across the series, we've seen him turn villains into heroes, manipulate scientists into endangering the planet, and overall corruption in general. His plans are very smart, and I genuinely believe that he's able to do everything he does because he spends a good amount of time observing the girls and chalking out a plan. He's very observant, and that's his strength. Without that, he wouldn't have been able to wreak as much havoc as he has.
See, won't we? You will find your professor when you solve this last rhyme. Where is boiling?
Tom Kane's voice performance. Why, it's central to everything. There's no way you can talk about him as a character without bringing up Tom Kane. I genuinely believe that if anyone else voiced him, he wouldn't have had the impact as big as he did. See, Kane built his performance on a dual register. You have the calm, manipulative, in-control voice where him is slightly feminine, slightly melodic as he whispers. It's creepy, yeah, but it feels intimate, you know. There's something wrong. You know it, I know it, but it's a little inviting. Then you have the angry, distorted, multi-layered screech that sounds like a demon. Yeah, a demon. If you listen carefully, it feels like there are 2 or 3 voices layered on top of one another, making it sound the way nightmares behave. It immediately gives you goosebumps if you weren't expecting it, and given that a character like him, who looks like him, got these 2 registers instead of a campy, flamboyant voice, is truly something. I love that Kane went the direction that he did because I feel like the dialogues, even when they aren't meant to be a threat, sound threatening as he whispers them. And because it's a whisper, you kind of have to focus and lean in to listen properly, which gives you a jump scare the moment the screech comes out. This is an exceptional use of sound design that I haven't even seen done properly in high-budget horror films. The only films that have used sound design this well are East Asian horror movies, where the sound itself lures you in and marks you for the rest of your life.
Come with me and show everyone what you can do.
Him in the 2016 reboot, and why it didn't work. Hollywood will always rinse and repeat things if they went well the first time. We all know that. So when Powerpuff Girls came back in 2016, I knew him would return too. However, this return was disappointing. We grew up with the more menacing him, someone that made it into our nightmares. This him is very comedic and conventionally villainous, if you get my drift. Everything that made him stand out was absent. Without all of that, this one was just another villainous character. When you compare the 2016 him to the 1998 him, you can tell exactly why the McCracken version works so well. Him's whole thing was the duality and the deception. He looks nice, but he isn't. He's whispering intimately, but he's actually threatening you, you know? And when you remove the duality of the deception, him is just a villain who's on the same level as Mojo Jojo and the Gang Green Gang. Yeah, I said it, and I meant it. Look, we both know that the 2016 reboot had problems, right? However, the whole him situation is the biggest clue as to what happens when you try to reboot something without understanding what made it work in the first place. This is why I don't like it when a reboot notification comes out.
What a pleasant surprise! Ooh, what's the occasion?
Him's legacy, what he represents in the history of children's animation. Almost 3 decades later, here we are in 2026, and we gotta say, Craig McCracken really did something with him. Everything about this character was deliberate, from the voice to the outfit to the dialogue, and for 7 years, no one made him the butt of the joke. No one questioned it, and we all accepted him as he is, without any question. Now, him is a cultural phenomenon because he's one of the first gender non-conforming characters in mainstream Western children's animation. And that title comes with its pros and cons. But hey, you gotta admit, him was that villain that had everyone shaking in their boots. He was a villain who even scared the adults back in the day. And while it was a risky move, I'm glad they went through with it, because watching him rampage on my screen was truly a blessing. And that, my guys, is him. Craig McCracken gave us something that no one in those days even dared to do. And here we are, still discussing him, cosplaying him, loving him. I bet if him knew how much we loved him, he would have gone a little easier on the girls. But do we really want a heinous character like him to know that we love him? I don't think so. Let me know in the comments which episode of him you liked the most and why. Like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye!